welcome to Live Hang number 25. This is your buddy Dave over at MarsX3D, and I never thought I'd get this stuff to work. I've been plugging away at it for a half an hour, and YouTube, as usual, makes things a great deal more difficult than they need to be. So I need to really check into StreamYard and see about using that. I believe that's supposed to be easier, but I haven't had the time for the learning curve, frankly. Anyway, so glad to see each and every one of you with us. We have Amanda, we have Don, we have Alan over in Scotland, and I'm sure we'll have some other worthies show up, but I want you guys to remind the latecomers to put their quarter in the coffee can by the door, the Twizzler account, the general fund, and I get to be the general. I love Twizzlers. Anyway, well, spring is on the way, and you can see I cut off my winter growth, and we're looking at some 15, 60 degree weather in the next week or two. We'll take it. It's been down to single digits and zero and ice-covered snow and all kinds of ugly stuff like that. But that's all part of the game, isn't it? And we were chatting about some of the things going on over in the Mother Russia. And we don't talk about politics here generally, but I know that some of you who live in the European Union are pretty nervous about it because you don't have the Atlantic Ocean between you and the Mad Dog. So our good thoughts go out to you, and hopefully our dumpster fire in the White House will do something meaningful and cut them off at the knees with a little bit of luck. Anyway, hey, Inhabit Mars just showed up. How you doing, man? Everybody's quarter is in the jar, including mine. I always feed it. I put a buck or two in there so I don't feel guilty. But boy, I almost didn't make it tonight. I mean, YouTube just would not cooperate, but here we are. So that's all good. Glad to see you. Thanks for stopping by. We have some cool things to look at from Persy and from Curiosity, including things from Dale Rogers, who is a regular hangout guy, and a number of other people. There's Raymond. Hey, Raymond, yes, life is complicated, but the nice thing is, as you get older, it gets a whole lot more simple, even though it is still complicated, because I just deal with the simple stuff and I forget everything else, with the emphasis on forget. Anyway, so let's see what some of these, 70 here in 72 in St. Louis. Well, Don, let me use a technical term with you, which would be bite me. 72 is beautiful, man. In fact, years ago when I was doing a tour over in Hawaii, it was 72 degrees all the time, and it was absolutely perfect. And I realized, man, 72 is the perfect temperature, especially when there's white sand beaches and blue water and hula girls and tropical birds and all that good stuff. So, well, let me show you something I've been working on this week. And if you're ready to dive into some X3D, this has nothing to do with Mars, but everything to do with honing one's skills in the X3D realm. So this is a tiger praying mantis. And that's hard to believe, but that's a real thing right there. Who would even believe something like that is real? And who knows how long they're going to last. I mean, the world's getting eaten up. All our flora and fauna and everything seems to be disappearing. You know, here in the North Woods of the People's Republic of Massachusetts, wow, wildlife is just not present like it used to be. We still have the occasional fox, and of course we have songbirds, squirrels. That's about it. Same in Iowa. When I was back there, man, when I was growing up, there were critters everywhere. Everywhere, including the occasional black bear and the wolverine and of course possums and skunks and all of them too. But in the last few years before I moved out here, they all disappeared. They're all gone. Anyway, let's see. I guess we may as well start because we have quite a few things to look at today. And yeah, Don, that's right. That praying mantis does remind me of the bugs of Hawaii. They're big, they're colorful, and most of them are kind of dangerous. So let's start. Okay, now this thing, folks, has been making the rounds lately. And people have been jumping on it like a chicken chasing a June bug. If you ever had chickens, you know what I mean. There's no better food than a June bug for a chicken. And we've had all kinds of comments and everybody claiming, oh, I found it. No, I found it over here. No, this is mine. It's also silly. But as far as I can tell, Nurul Iman Subardi was the very first one to post this on MarsX3D. And let's move in a little bit closer. And I've had people call this a lady's high-heeled shoe. Yeah, I guess I can see that if I was Picasso. And that little angular block sticking out in the lower left-hand corner, that's pretty cool. I wonder what that is and if that's natural. But you know, truth be told, I believe this is a ventifact, something formed by wind and sand, which we have quite a bit of up in Mars. And I've mentioned it before that I like to adhere to Occam's razor, which simply states that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. You know, people twist themselves into pretzels over things on Mars. And, you know, there's no need to do it. There are more than enough genuine anomalies scattered everywhere, all over the surface, to have to stretch your mind to say, oh my gosh, this is this or this is that. No, let's zero in on the stuff that's solid, or reasonably solid anyway. Too many people just are ready to call every single rock and stone an anomaly. I get a little tired of it. It wears out our credibility big time with the general public. Oh, Messinissa is here. Hello, my friend. Glad to have you with us tonight, sir. And let's go on with one or two more as people trickle in by the door trying to sneak in. And this is from an early curiosity, 712. Something that Sarah Runcie found. And you look at that little yellow target in the lower center, and that's what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and move in. Hey, Renee Osterland is here. Thank you, Renee. Glad you could show up for a little while. I know it's late for you, my friend, so I do appreciate you taking a few minutes to show up. So here we go, zooming in on what I'm calling Sarah's critter. What the blazes is that? I suspect it's something mechanical. Maybe not. But I have no idea what that is. And Planetary Protector is on board. Welcome aboard, my friend. Glad to see you guys. And, I've been working hard on the tutorials. And part 1 and part 2 were, shall I say, received an underwhelming response. But, they serve a purpose. Because some of you out there, somebody somewhere, is going to want to learn how to do X3D. Not only of your Mars anomalies, but of your personal images as well. This tells you how to do it. Obviously, it's a very complex subject, and this is just very, very basic. It's using the new Layapix converter software. It's online software. And it does a really good job. Still a lot of things that have to be fixed every time you make an image with them. But I kind of show you how to do that. We dive into the clone brush technique. Very basic, nothing complicated. And right now I'm working on part 3, which is stereo compositing. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for coming along. Good to see you. And right now I'm working on stereo compositing, which is a lot of fun. There isn't anybody that I'm aware of anywhere who is teaching anybody how to do stereo compositing, and that is moving your graphic images into the z-axis to finish up your image. That would be like your copyright and your logo and your data information and anything else that you feel like putting into your image. Okay, well, Granny's ready for some more photos. So we're going to go into something kind of interesting here. And I found several interesting things here. Now, as you look at this is a distant shot of a cliff, 3331 Curiosity, nifty gigamacro. Bear in mind that one in the center. We're going to come back and look at that. But before we do, I want to show you a couple things that I found. Look at this. Now, I know for a fact that many, if not most of you looking at this, are not going to see what's actually there. So I'm going to box it up for you. See all that mechanical debris? That is amazing. I have no idea what it is. Is it geologic? I don't know. And Masselina Mass is asking, was that in the original picture, is that a door? Yeah, it's a doorway. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But look at this. Here's another one from that same cliff. Now let your eyes work around in this image. What are we looking at here? Is this natural? Or is this something that was created? I honestly don't know. Anyway, remember that doorway in the first one. This is what's in there. Now, a fellow named Frederick Bolin was the first one to point this out, as far as I know. And he called it a face, and of course that's automatic pareidolia. You see a mouth and two eyes there. but I think it's more than that. Is it natural? I don't think so. This is really a strange bit of business, and it's cut back into the cliff like it's meant to be a doorway. So I don't know. Let's look at another one. This is kind of interesting. There's a bunch of stuff in this GMAC, and when you go in there, and if you ever click the link under the video, when it goes up, you'll find tons of anomalies in there, and I've marked a bunch of them. I marked lots of stuff that I never use in the videos. But if you're interested in anomaly hunting, Nev and Neil Spence, their GMAX are as good as they get. So look at this. We're going to move in. And by the way, we're looking at that. You almost can't see it. There's a red target over on the right side, halfway up. That's what we're going to zoom in on. Here we go. Is that wild? Now, the fellow who found that, he said this thing in back here reminded him of gear cogs. Well, maybe. But I know that's not a natural rock. It's got a little hole in it. Looks like it's whistling up a storm or something. Then you've got this interesting piece over here. What is that? Obviously, the easy fallback is going to be Occam's razor. Well, that's just a rock. And that may be all it is. But then it's got that rectangular cutout with almost a cartouche engraved on the inside. Other markings, bilateral symmetry. And then there's this one down there in the middle. Did y'all ever have a Play-Doh factory when you were a little kid? And you load it with Play-Doh and put a cutter on the front and press it out, and it would extrude in different shapes. That's what that looks like to me. It's like it's been extruded. It's definitely not natural. It's got a curve to it, parallel and vertical lines, a beautifully finished surface of 4 rounded corners, and there are markings on that surface, but they're awfully hard to make out. So I think that stuff is pretty cool. And of course, we have a whole lot more coming up in just a minute. I'm hoping that some of you will consider looking at the Easy Peasy X3D tutorials because you can take your own pictures, things you take with your camera phone, and turn them into beautiful 3D pictures, and it's easy as pie. With this new software, anybody can do it. I show you a few basics, how to set the stereo window and, do some other things. Tony showed up. Hey, a proud weirdo first class. Delighted to have you there, my friend. And Tony is one of our gallant supporters. We thank you very much for that, Tony. And always glad to see a actual supporting member show up here. I'm glad to see all of you, of course. And, if you're not in a position to support the channel, I understand. That's cool. We're all scraping by. But for those of you who feel so moved, man, I appreciate the heck out of it. And as I eventually develop some merchandise. I hope. Well, below my other projects, there'll be some cool things available to all of you. So anyway, we looked at our gears, and now let's take a look at a few more things. This one is pretty cool. You can see it right there in the middle almost. And take a look at this thing. I think this is amazing. Are you ready? Here it comes at you. Now let your eyes play over that. That is so not a rock. Is it a machine? Is it a toppled statue? You know, on the right end, on the top, those look like bas-relief figures that have been carved there. But who knows what this is? I mean, this is some crazy stuff. And now we have several instances of what might be lettering. This is from Curiosity 3387. Again, GMAC by Neville Thompson. And take a look at this. That is down in the right-hand corner, right? Take a look at this. Is that wild? And here's what gets me. You've got that smooth, even surface to the left, curved and smooth and polished. And then that line of what appears to be glyphs or lettering, very neatly parallel and carved in bas-relief on the edge. So, how does something weather like that? Here's another one in that same image. It might be broken off of this piece. Look at this. The same type of thing. Isn't that cool? And I really like this triangular piece right there. That is not natural. Nope. And here's some more lettering. And this is one of our members, Mike Desavel, found this one. Let's zoom in on that target. And again, the same type of thing, only this time it looks like maybe 3.5 rows of lettering or glyphs. How is that so even and so parallel? And why is the rest of the rock not weathered in the same way? Then going back to 3387, here's some more. What might be lettering? You've got this curved plate with all kinds of mechanical looking stuff hanging off of it. And right down the center again is a bas-relief row of what look like characters or glyphs. How does that happen in nature? Dave says he doesn't know. And in the same GMAC, take a look at this. Now, I know that most of you looking at this are not going to be able to pick out everything that's weird here, so I'm going to help you out a little bit. I'm going to label things for you. We have that square top, and see, that's a cube, isn't it? A square top with something coming off the right side and stuff on top as well. And then look at this. You got this triangle with holes drilled in it. What the heck? Can you say intelligent agency? Why, sure you can. Then you have these two round things coming off the cube in the front of whatever this thing is. How does that happen? And how does that one on the left, how does that happen right in the dead center of the cube? Riddle me that, Batman. And then you've got that tangled mess on the right side of the cube. It almost looks like a radial engine that's been all boogered up, bent, slammed, and corroded. Who knows what it is, but it seems to have a radial format to it, at least to my eyes. But here's the one I wanted you all to see. And boy, inhabit Mars, I love a Rotax engine. I'm hoping to get into an autogyro here before I CAC. And I want one with a Rotax 912. Have a little bit of power and clean. Okay, look at this. Are you ready? That's wild. That looks like a tank track to me. I'm not saying that's what it is, of course. But it's very compelling. It looks like it has a track around it and wheels or axles, hubs strung along the length of it. Badly decomposed and rusted. That's really some pretty amazing stuff. And we have a few more to look at, but I know how lonely you get for me. And I get lonely for myself too. I just love seeing myself in the mirror or on camera. And of course, you know I have a silly streak a mile wide in me. You can't take life seriously, right? It's one of my favorite sayings is that angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. I like to think of myself as a flyer. Anyway. And I thought you guys would have more questions tonight. And here's another one from Sarah Runcie. Down there, right in the middle in front. Doesn't look like anything from here. But when we zoom in, look at that. Now we know that the spiral is almost a universal artistic expression here on Earth with Paleolithic tribes. That typically it meant something to do with the universe or the power of the circling stars and planets circling from our perspective on Earth. But I had one guy complaining about this. Sarah had posted her own image of this, and it was not quite as clear, but he was saying, he poo-pooed it and said, oh, that occurs all over Earth. I told him, okay, show us your examples. Show us what you mean. Because that is definitely not a sedimentary process. That's carved. And it's got a sphere at the top. And it's got more glyphs and figures moving along the bottom edge of that rock and moving up the right edge. I think this is a splendid find. A very powerful find. And Sarah Runcie has kind of been on a roll lately. And God love her, she's one of the people who sees tiny Martians in every nook and cranny. But she's a consistent researcher. She's been working at it, as far as I know, since at least 2014. And lately she's made some pretty good discoveries. And that's the ticket. I mean, if you just do the work, if you just look, you'll find stuff. And it's particularly exciting when you discover something that nobody else has found yet. And that's good. Has some impact. Not, there's so many people putting stuff up that's either too blurry or they're calling every single rock a machine or a this or a that or a craft or... I was like, no. Come on. Let's use a little objective rationality here. And again, that's why I focus on the non-fractal map, because that doesn't depend on me applying my interpretation of what I think is intelligent agency. The math speaks for itself. And so that's why I do this. And that's why I'd like you to do it too. I'd like to encourage you to consider taking a look at the Easy Peasy X3D tutorials. Because trust me, you can do this. You'll have so much fun with it. Making your own X3D images of your friends and family and outings and different things that you do. It's a ton of fun. And they're wonderful memories. I was just looking at an image I posted on my Facebook site, Magic Window X3D. And for those of you who like X3D viewing, you might want to stop by over there, because we have people contributing from all over the world. There's a whole global community of X3D enthusiasts. And but I was working on an image I found of I took my band to play at the Sun and Fun Fly-In in 1998, and did a X3D conversion of that. That's a lot of fun to see. Friends and family and yourself even 20, 30, 40 years ago, and you're standing there in 3D. It's pretty bizarre. Talk about a time shift, huh? So let's cycle through some of our stuff back at the beginning. And Raymond was asking, you've been wondering why many recent Curiosity images are being sent in black and white with a Bayer filter grid pattern. Well, Raymond, my understanding, which may or may not be correct, is that bayering is a precursor to an RGB, red, green, blue, breakdown of the image, and that assists them in collimating the red, green, and blue images to create a color image. The problem is that a lot of times they don't get to debayering for months, and especially if you've been going to the analyst's notebook, you'll notice there's a 4 to 6 month lag in getting the missions up there. And by the way, this is a spiny flower mantis from way over there, and I think in Thailand, actually. What an amazing critter. So anyway, we had talked. And Raymond mentions, yeah, he's looking for late-breaking anomalies like this one. Everyone's jumping on this. Everyone's all over this one, and they're calling it absolute proof of intelligent life. No, there's nothing non-fractal about it. Or they'll say, my favorite so far has been, it's a lady's shoe. And yeah, it's a lady's shoe if you happen to be Picasso. And yeah, Raymond, you can take any image off the GMAX or Analyst Notebook or wherever you want to go where there are decent images and make an X3D from it. It's really easy. Anyway, I'm calling this one a vetifact rather than an artifact. A vetifact, of course, is something that's formed by wind and sand and other erosional processes. And Crazy A is with us. Hey, CA. Don is he's always a wiseacre. Okay, Pseudocheirobotra walbergii, or the spiny flower mantis. So, everybody, who's the big shot in the room tonight? It's Don. And that's okay, Don. Thanks for checking that out. So we zoomed in on this thing a little. And yeah, it's a very compelling shape. I mean, it's beautiful, really. I would love to have that sitting on my shelf or in my garden, or, I mean, it's beautifully shaped. But it's so sinuous, it talks to me of wind flowing over it. Wind and sand. And of course I like that little bit down in there in the left-hand corner. That's pretty cool. Who knows what that is? And of course all the heavy hitters have claimed this one, you know, Rami Bar-Ilan and Martine Graney and, you know, all the big groups on Facebook. They say, oh, yeah, I found it. And it's like, no, Nurul Iman Supardi was the first one to find this. And I want to give him credit for it before he gets trampled under all of the people more interested in their ego than in the truth. Okay. So let's move on to another one. And this is another one that Sarah Runcie has found. And you can see, I mean, I would love to explore the surface of Mars. Doesn't that look interesting? I'd love to climb up through those rocks and just look for stuff. But right there, kind of to the right of lower center, is that yellow target. We're going to zoom in on it. And look at that. Isn't that bizarre? I have absolutely no idea what that is. Well, that's an interesting point, Raymond. He asks about the financial break-even point, whether it's the same for all who have YouTube channels. Well, I don't know, since I've never reached that point. But, you know, you need to have 20, 30,000 subscribers before you start seeing any somewhat meaningful income coming in. And yes, Don, that black dot in the sky is something that's typical of Curiosity. Let's go back to that just for a second. And there's a speck on the lens, and it appears in every single picture, and I can't tell you how many times people have said, it's a UFO, or it's a bird, or some other such thing. Anyway, next we're going over to 3331. We have a nice doorway cut into the cliff. But first we're going to look just to the left and just to the right of that doorway before we look at the doorway. And again, let your eyes play over this and see how many non-fractals you can see in there. I'm going to box it in for you. And by the way, on the tutorial part 3 I'm working on, I show you exactly how to do this. How to place boxes, how to place your logos and data and all that other stuff on the Z-axis. It's a lot of fun, and actually it only takes a few minutes. I think the video itself is probably less than 10 minutes long. I haven't finished it yet, but it's booming right along. Anyway, a lot of stuff in there. And if I was climbing that cliff, you better believe I'd go have a good close look at whatever this stuff is. Here's another piece of interesting business. Just to the side of that doorway. Did that happen naturally? Well, it sure looks uniform, especially that recessed area in the sunlight to the left of the darker part. It really looks like somebody worked on that. But who knows? Maybe it is erosion. And he said on 3331, what's on top of the hill on the right-hand side? Well, I guess you're talking about that. Maybe. No, that's not what you were talking about. You're talking about that. And yeah, it looks like a cube with a couple of wheels in there. But I didn't want to mess with it. You know, I try to leave stuff for other people. And I try to focus on as much as I can other people's finds. I salt my own in there, of course. You know, I'm still a player. But I like to give an overview of what's happening in the anomaly community globally. Context view. Well, I have two context views of 3331. Let's see if I can find it. Again, they're all tucked away here. Okay, you're probably talking about this one, I hope. Anyway, as I often say, there are lots of anomalies in these images. I just scratch the surface. I look at the most important ones, in my opinion. I don't want to get lost in the weeds and make a video that's 30, 40, 50 minutes long. Who cares? Who has that kind of time? Unless you have absolutely nothing to do. You just sit around looking at YouTube videos all day, which probably be fun. Well, Don, here's the problem. You know, we're such a 45-second to 1 minute delay that it's really hard to communicate back and forth in real time and zero on the image that you want. So we're going to take a look at the one that a guy called Gears, and it's in that, you almost can't see it. It's on the right side in the middle. And Don, yeah, might or might not be. When the video comes out, rather crazy, eh? When the video comes out, just click on the link, go right to the Giga Macro, and just search until you puke. You can zoom in, you can mark things, you can save, and you know, anything you zoom in on and save, you just copy the URL, and it'll go right back to your save, which is pretty cool. So we were looking at this really cool thing there up on the ridge. That looks manufactured to me. Why else would you have a hole in the middle and a rimmer on the top and have it be a bilaterally symmetrical curve and have that carving and stuff along the bottom? That's pretty amazing erosion. It really is. You have this strange piece of business over here on the left. It looks like that square has been incised, almost like a cartouche. There's something inside, but not enough resolution again. Then you have this extruded piece down there. How perfect is that? A beautiful round-cornered square. I wish we could see what's on the surface of it. I suppose I could have gone in there and burnt those markings in. Maybe I'll do that before I do the video. I try not to exaggerate too much. I just try to bring things out. And look just to the right of that too. There's that interesting triangular piece. What's up with that? And see that ridge of rock just above it? That looks like it's covered with carving. Now realistically, maybe it's all just erosion. Could well be. But we don't know. And we won't know until we actually get up there and put our boots on the ground and go around and look at this stuff. You know, I'm convinced that, especially based on non-fractal finds, that there was a civilization or two on Mars that was destroyed in a planetary cataclysm, which apparently consisted of a gargantuan nuclear attack from space. And the non-fractal gives it away. I mean, you can't argue with it. Think about Earth if we were obliterated by a nuclear war and tsunamis. What's going to be left? Not a whole lot. After 1,000 years, it's almost nothing. After 10,000, 100,000, 200,000, however long it's been, about the only things that are going to last are corroded metal parts, probably, things that have been rolled up in mud and turned into mud fossils and then gradually had the mudstone eroded away and revealing what's inside of them again. That's why so many of the things that we find appear to be emerging from the stone in which we find them. So, what would we find on Earth after 100,000 years? Would we find mud fossils? Would we find what we find now? Ooparts? Out-of-place artifacts like electrodes, spark plugs, finely made objects of metal and alloys that we can't replicate today? You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on this planet in our past that we don't know anything about. Okay, anyway, let's get my mug off of here and let's have a look at this broken piece. Mars Leaks is the one who pointed this out. And yeah, Renee, it could be. It absolutely could be. Anyway, we're going to zoom in on that piece of bluestone inside the turquoise box. And that, I think, is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. As you move your eyes along it from left to right, and you see all the symmetries, the square with a circle inside it, might even be an opening, who knows? Those spheres running up the spine of the next piece, and then that spade-like head with raised figures on it. I just have a feeling that this is something very important archaeologically. And I would hope, I know that NASA redacts their images and that they keep the high-res anomaly stuff for their own classified files. But I truly hope that they're marking the position of many of these things so that when we do get up there publicly, that we can go look at them. And you know, if it's a rock, okay, it's a rock. Hi, Gentry. Welcome aboard. And now we're going to get into a whole batch of what seems to be lettering. Yeah, inhabit Mars. That'd be a big power sander. That's about 8 feet long. Anyway, we're going to dive into some of the lettering that I've been messing around with this past week. Thank you, JJ Jersey Jeeper. Yeah, folks, if you happen to think of it, give it a thumbs up. That helps me appear in the algorithms that YouTube uses to rank things. Thank you, Renee. Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. Anyway, down there in the right-hand corner, isn't that cool? That to me is so not natural. Now, it's not strictly non-fractal. But you know, those glyphs or letters, whatever they are all about the same size. They're in a very straight row between two parallel lines. They're in bas relief. So I'd sure like to see the erosional process that creates that. Here's another piece from the same pan. Isn't that cool? And of course, I like this this triangular extrusion over here on the left. Definitely not natural, in my opinion. I'm sure if there's a professional geologist or earth sciences person out there who was watching this, they'd laugh and poo-poo me and will say, no, of course, that we find these all over the planet. But gosh, why don't you ever post them so we can see them? I'm ready to correct my stance on the truth anytime I'm given the facts. I'm not married to any of this stuff. I'm married to the truth. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. And here's another one from 3391, a couple days later. Something that Mike Desavelle found. And look as we zoom in. It's the same type of thing, isn't it? That looks so much like... yeah, right, come and take it, Raymond says. That looks like cuneiform to me. It really just does look like cuneiform. Or some kind of cross blend between cuneiform and hieroglyph. And going back to 3387, we have this piece, another very strange bit of work. And it's got what looks like letters. Again, bas relief, raised letters, going right up the center of what could be, well, that dished surface. Is that a radar dish? Is that an idol? Is it an old machine? I don't know. You look off to the left and the other stuff that's attached to it, and I'm inclined to think it's mechanical. And then we have this rascal here. And again, for some of those who are joining us a little bit later, this maybe isn't real clear to you, what we're seeing, so let me point things out. First of all, we have a square top, and that belongs to the square top of a cube, doesn't it? Then we've got that triangle with two beautifully drilled, perfect holes in it. Almost looks like the rib from an aircraft with lightning holes drilled through the rib. Then you have these two circular things coming out. And of course, one on the left. How is it that managed to come out dead center in the cube and that it's perfectly symmetrical? Just curious. Then you've got all this tangle of stuff here. As I mentioned earlier, that looks kind of like a radial engine. And yeah, Raymond, there's debris everywhere. There are anomalies everywhere. And it's one of the reasons I'm doing the tutorials is to try to get somebody out there involved in this we need more pairs of eyes. And I can't do all the anomalies. I just pick and choose as I go along and try to find the most impressive stuff I can find. But for every one thing I present, there are 10 or 15 that I find and don't present, but that I know are artificial and are anomalies. They're out there. And then this cool thing, what looks like a tank track. You can almost see the tread around the outside and the hubs. It's pretty cool, isn't it? I think it is. Of course, I'm easily thrilled. Hey, Salvatore. Thanks for coming by. Good to see you. And before we wrap things up tonight, we have a couple more images to have a quick look at. Let me look at some of these meshes. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you. And some of those finds are yours, and yours are coming up. I believe there's another one of yours coming up in another episode. You guys send me some great stuff, and I wish I could use it all, but I have to strike a balance between content and being non-fractal and clear and workable, and being able to present a good 3D image, having those qualities in the image itself that make for a good 3D image. And I can't do them all. I've pretty much caught up, but you guys keep sending me stuff, and I love it. Thank you very much. So anyway, let's have a quick look at these last couple of things that Sarah Runcie found down there in the bottom center. And as we zoom in on that, look at those spirals. Those are beautiful. And any of you who are familiar with petroglyphs or paleo carving, Mark is here. Thank you. We see these, spiral is a common motif among, it would seem, among all sentient beings. And they tend to have a representation of being the universe or energy or the cyclical nature of the planets, the apparent rotation of the stars from the Earth perspective. All things which impacted ancient life in terms of planting and other festivals, things that were important to them to stay alive. So we'll take one more quick look at the spiny flower mantis. What a cool bug. Those suckers are deadly. They can rotate their head. Their compound eyes see better than we do, and they see a wider range of color of the electromagnetic spectrum than we do. They are amazing critters. Very intelligent, very quick, very, very deadly. Which totally does not describe me. Anyway, so a lot of cool things, and I got a bunch more, but they're going into. I'm working on episode 120 now, I hope to get that in the can either tomorrow or Thursday. And then I have more than enough for episode 121, which I'll start working on the weekend. So it never ends. Of course, when summertime hits, yours truly is going to the Sunrise Command. And I'm going to fish like crazy. I figured out, now I've got it dialed in how I'm going to get lake trout and salmon. And no, it has nothing to do with dynamite. But a good friend of mine who was on my solo album, turns out he has a brother-in-law in Maine, and he's had to relearn fishing just like I've had to relearn it in Maine because it's so different. And he told me all the secrets, and I'm gonna be ready for him this year. I want to smoke some salmon and smoke some lake trout and gorge myself like a grizzly bear. Anyway, so that about wraps it up for the evening, folks. We had a nice selection of images to look at, and had some good comments. Before I go, let's see, and I know there's a 45-second delay, so just try and catch whatever questions or comments you might have before we sign off. But as I mentioned earlier, I almost didn't get on because of YouTube and all their silly business with their software. It took me 4 attempts before I finally got a good stream. I mean, I had an excellent stream, or so they said, but no image. Go figure. So the way we do this, folks, is this. If you want to kind of end run YouTube for videos you like, whether it's mine or anybody else's, give them a like, give them a thumbs up. Even if it's a big channel like Secure Team 10 or something like that with millions of viewers, those thumbs up really help. And helps me. I'm starting to appear in the rankings, in the suggestions, and so that's kind of cool. It's not gangbusters yet by any means, but I think once you start monetizing, they start salting you into the mix. And thank you, Don. Thank you for being here. Renee, thank you for being here. And so glad that you could make it. I know that our friends over in Europe and the UK and Scotland and thereabouts, it's quite late for you. So I doubly appreciate you making the time to be here. That's one of the reasons I started doing it an hour earlier. And just so some of our friends from around the world could participate, if only for a little while. And I see a question here, Mark. What do you think about Techno Thanks? I have no idea what you're talking about. Techno Thanks. Oh, Jessica made it. And just in time to say goodbye. You owe a full $1. You got to put $1 worth of quarters in the coffee can, Jessica. I'm a little disappointed in you, but you can always watch the replay. Anyway, I think that about calls it for the night. We've had a good look at a couple of things, and fresh video coming up on Friday, and Easy Peasy X3D Part 3 coming up, maybe this weekend, or maybe early next week, depending on when I can get it rendered and uploaded and all that stuff. And I sure hope that some of you will experiment with it a little bit even, just for fun. You might get bit by the bug. You never know. Anyway, this is your buddy Dave over at MarsX3D. Be well.